This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
Good morning. I'm Kyle Malin, editor of the MERS newsletter, filling in for Steve Gruber today. Thanks for joining us on the program. We got some breaking news coming that the mastermind behind the Paris, France attacks on Friday was indeed killed in a raid that just took place. Joining us on the other end of the line to opine about this and other subjects related to the Syrian refugees and things going on in the Middle East is our friend, U.S. Representative Tim Walberg. Thanks for joining us, sir. Are you with us, Congressman?
Kyle, I'm with you.
Hey.
I wondered if Steve would be in his tree stand today or not.
He is indeed. He is out looking for some game for the year, and we wish him the best of luck as he's out there. Hopefully, his deer doesn't have chronic wasting disease or anything else nasty out there.
We sure hope that's the case. Yeah.
Well, we're just getting...
good to be with you.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're on the program today. We just got some breaking news alert that the supposed mastermind behind the terror attack in Paris has indeed been killed. Your thoughts on, I guess, hearing that news?
Well, I think justice is served when people like that are taken out, whether it be in the court of law or in a firefight, if that's how they want to go out. And as of last night, we felt that had taken place, and glad to hear confirmation of it. But it's just another indication that these people are fully committed to the cause of their terrorist activities. For whatever reason, they've taken their religion and made it into something that goes way beyond what normal people would think would be appropriate and would be part of life itself. And they're committed to it. We need to be committed to the right kind of life, but also committed to the fact that we have to stand up against people like this who could care less about human life, or the fact of the matter whether you're innocent of anything or not, they're going after you. So hopefully our administration will learn something and has learned something from all of this, and today will at least be willing to listen to what Congress is about to do.
I'm reading from a CNN report here, and I'm going to give a crack here at this name here, Abdelhamid Aboud. How do you think
You're pretty close.
Did I do okay on that? Okay, that was the supposed mastermind. The French authorities went into a northern Paris suburb of Saint-Denis and got into a gunfight with terrorists there, and apparently this gentleman was one of the people who was indeed killed. Now, most of this segment so far, Congressman, we've been talking about the governor's decision to press the pause button on accepting more Syrian refugees into the state. I wanted to get your opinion on him pushing the pause button, and do you think this should be a permanent pause?
Well, I think it should be a lengthy pause. America is still a place where immigrants can come, and certainly a place where we've had refugees before, fleeing oppression and the like. And I don't think we want to go away from that. However, the first responsibility of government, and that includes state government, is to defend and protect and promote the security of our citizens. And so I applaud the governor for doing what he did. I think he evidenced the compassion that goes along with Michiganders or Americans themselves, but I think the reality and the wisdom of saying, wait a second, the events of today indicate that it would be highly unwise to move forward with accepting whatever number of refugees we would bring in, simply because we don't know how to vet them. And until we do, we had better put a pause button, and I think it'll be a lengthy pause button. Hopefully not permanent, because hopefully this administration will step up to the plate and will show leadership in the world again, at the very least, step up to the plate with France and, sadly, Russia, and put effort and power to put these people down. This only happened because we didn't show that power several years ago in Syria, drawing a line and in the sand and then letting that line be crossed and evaporate. We let this happen when we pulled out of Iraq before we should have. And when you do that, you leave a vacuum for the cretins like these terrorists to fill that vacuum, and now they've metastasized, and they're all over. And so we have to have a resolve to stop that, and then I think the pause button can be released. But until then, our people are not secure, they're not safe, the prosperity and the happiness is at question in this country. That can't be allowed.
Now, we had one of your colleagues, U.S. Congressman Candace Miller, question whether Governor Snyder and Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley should have been as accepting to the Syrian refugees as they were before the Paris attacks. Was the governor making a mistake by opening arms from the state of Michigan, welcoming these folks in?
Well, I guess we'll never know. But I too felt that it was too soon and too large of a group of people. Knowing what I know from the national level, and in briefings with the FBI director, the Secretary of Homeland Security, when asked directly, point-blank questions about how you will vet these people, they very clearly confirmed the fact that they could not assure us that a proper vetting could be done. Now, whether the governor knew that or not, I don't know, so I'm not going to judge that fact. But I certainly thought it was too many people and too quick before we understood how we could do it. And I'm hoping that governors like our governor and 30, I believe now 31 other governors, including surrounding states to us, will very strongly push back against the federal government's attempt to relocate these people if indeed the president does what he says he's going to do and vetoes a bill that will pass today in the House that attempts to secure our citizenry from the acts of these violent, nasty people that care less about human life.
You're listening to the Steve Gruber Show. I'm Kyle Malin, editor of MERS, filling in today. We've got Congressman Tim Walberg on the line. We've got a minute left before we hit our break here, Congressman, but I wanted to get your comments real quick on why this has become such a partisan issue. Why is it that Republicans seem to be united in pushing back against the Syrian refugees, whereas Democrats have, by and large, gone behind President Obama and been a bit more accepting of bringing them in?
Well, it's philosophical, though I think you'll see today the vote on the floor of the House, at least from what I've heard as recently as this morning in the locker room, down in the gym, there will be Democrats supporting us because they have seen the problem. And this isn't a pushback against Syrian refugees. We know that there are tragic situations, and we have wonderful Syrians over here, right in the state of Michigan, in my district, who have family over there who are minorities, Christians and otherwise, who are being abused, being threatened, being killed, and tortured. And we cannot turn a deaf ear or blind eye to that. But
all right. We're going to continue with that thought after the break, Congressman. We'll be back after this break. Thanks for joining us. You're listening to The Steve Gruber Show. I'm Kyle Malin, filling in today.
Delivering Michigan's common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
You're listening to the Steve Gruber Show. I'm Kyle Malin, editor of MERS, filling in today. Thanks to Alex Clark there for playing a little Rush to get us into the news segment here with Congressman Tim Walberg. And also thanks to Alex Clark for giving me a little bit of a lesson here into the name of the alleged mastermind behind the Paris, France terrorist attack. Abdelhamid Abaoud is the person who authorities believe was behind the terrorist attacks. And the news agencies are reporting that the prosecutors in France now claim and confirm that he was indeed killed in an attempted arrest, but what turned into a very violent shootout in a northern Paris suburb this morning. And so the person who is believed to be behind the attacks is now dead. Joining us on the other end of the line for a second segment, Congressman Tim Walberg. And we had to go to break there, so you weren't able to finish your thought here, but it was along the idea of why this has become such a partisan issue. And you were commenting that there are some Democrats you're hearing that are coming along to the Republicans' line of thinking on this, that we really got to give some very serious consideration about what we're doing here as far as accepting Syrian refugees into our borders, considering that there may have been some Syrian refugees involved in those Paris-France attacks.
Yeah, absolutely true. I think there are Democrats who are saying, wait a second, Mr. President, your policies haven't worked. They've led to a more dangerous world, a more divided world, and we're not going to be involved with dividing our country still further, just for political reasons or otherwise, and who knows. But a president that is unwilling to listen to the overwhelming majority of people of this country crying for protection and security is a problem. And so in Congress, we're going to push back on that and give him an opportunity to see legislation that won't shut the borders, that won't stop refugees, true refugees, but it'll put a vetting process in place that'll be a high lift, making it very difficult for people who want to kill us, who want to set up plots and training centers in the United States to carry out their purposes. That's all we're saying. And for the president to step up yesterday and try to say that we are standing against little children and grandmothers, that's not the language that's needed in a time that's very dangerous in the world and very dangerous for our country. And I would hope the president, having slept on that, will act like an adult today and will step up and say, the American people want to know that we've done the best to secure this country. And so I'm going to work with Congress. I'm not going to call names. I'm going to be a president that leads.
Now, can you give our listeners a little update on what you're expecting in Congress today in regards to this issue?
This issue will put in place probably the most aggressive, robust national security vetting process. It will take the people most responsible for our security and put them in the driver's seat of saying these individuals, and it will be done by individual. These individuals are vetted with information that we have. So the FBI director will certify the background investigations of each and every refugee, and then a panel made up of the FBI director, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the Director of National Intelligence, will certify to Congress that these individuals, one by one, have been vetted. Now, having met with these individuals, FBI Director, National Security Secretary, etc., just the other day in a classified briefing, especially the FBI Director, I believe we can trust implicitly to say to us, beyond a shadow of doubt, this person is vetted, or we cannot vet this person because we don't have the information enough to go with them. So this will put a pause, definitely, and it may stop the overwhelming majority of refugees and coming through, but that's the sad reality of a situation where you're working backwards from where we should have been with the Syrians who have been put into a place over these past 3 years that America, and specifically our administration, should not have let happen.
Now, the president would argue that this is a bit of political posturing on the Republicans' parts.
Well, sadly, that's what the president has done all through his term of office. He's divided this country rather than work with it. No, we aren't against refugees. Kyle, if you know my background, you know I'm a minister. I have great compassion for people. I don't want people put in harm's way. However, I know there's evil in the world as well. And I know that government is instituted to punish the doer of wrong and reward the doer of good. And we are to protect those people that we're responsible for, first and foremost, from evil. And in doing that, we know that there will be people that will fall under the grip, such as those people, 129, who were mercilessly murdered in Paris last week. Do we want that in the cities of the United States? And the answer is absolutely not. So, Mr. President, why would you push back against an effort that is well-meaning at the very least and with purpose to secure our country and to protect our citizens and ultimately get to a conclusion where we can help these refugees having put the cretins, these cockroaches, down, at least back into caves where they belong to be, if they aren't put to death, like this mastermind was put to death in these past 24 hours. So I hope the president grows up. And I say that with respect for the office, but with complete disagreement with this president on how he's handled the security of this nation.
Real quickly, one last question I want to get in here. Congress recently passed this 2-year budget deal that prevented a government shutdown, and some had called it a much-needed move for consistency purposes. Why were you a no vote on that one?
Well, because it had spending in it that was not justified or truly paid for. It increased our debt. It increased the debt ceiling opportunity for this president to a point that we would have not an $18 trillion debt moving toward 19 right now, but very likely this president will be a $20 trillion debt president, to have over doubled the debt of this country in his 8 years in office by the time he ends. That's not good. It also put in place some provisions that make it more difficult for businesses to stay alive and thrive, and ultimately, my main concern is that it then takes away opportunity for my citizens to have jobs.
We're going to have to cut you off right there. Thank you very much for your time today, Congressman Tim Walberg. We're going to be back after the break. You're listening to The Steve Gruber Show.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
You're listening to The Steve Gruber Show. I'm Kyle Malin, editor of the MERS newsletter, filling in today. We're going to use a little Willie Nelson to segue into our next segment. Brian Shipman, he's the product manager for Buick LaCrosse and Regal, and he is live from the Los Angeles Car Show. Good morning. Thanks for joining us so early, Brian.
Good morning, Kyle. It's great to be on the line with you.
So give us an update. What's going on at the Los Angeles Car Show?
We had a great day yesterday at the LA Auto Show. We introduced a brand new 17 model year Buick LaCrosse. It's the new face of Buick, and it's got a beautiful new front fascia. The whole new car is all new from the ground up, interior, exterior.
Now, tell our listeners what that means. I mean, what would they see in this LaCrosse that is different than what they have seen in past models?
So the first thing you'll notice is the Buick logo on the front is now back to multicolor, and you'll see a whole new front grille with the chrome bars going across it. The car is lowered by about 2 inches from today. It's swept back. It's got a much sportier design to it, and it's a very noticeable difference, a beautiful difference from today's car.
And when you said this is going to be the new face of Buick, what do you feel like the old face has been, and how is this going to assist the brand of Buick?
So the old face was a waterfall grille with a monochrome badge, which we used in North America, and it's did a great job for bringing up the brand's image. The new design is sportier, a little more youthful. It's got a little more color to it. It's also consistent now across the globe for Buick, for the face and the brand and the badge. So it's going to help out with leading the new, more expressive image for Buick.
Tell me what kind of market you guys look for in shopping the Buick LaCrosse. What type of individual do you see buying the car?
Our individuals for the LaCrosse are the professionals in the 40 to 50 range. We're split about 50-50, male to female, so it's a great mix. They're the low-key. They're not looking for a lot of bling on the car, but a very stylish, timeless design, which this new LaCrosse delivers very nicely.
Talk about fuel efficiency. What does this one get per mile?
So we haven't completed the testing of the fuel efficiency, but we do have a brand new 3.6-liter V6 engine that has start-stop technology. So when you pull up to a stoplight, it'll shut the engine off automatically and restart it. And we also have cylinder deactivation. So when you're at highway speeds, instead of using all 6 cylinders that you don't need, we'll cut off 2 cylinders and you'll be in 4-cylinder mode. So that'll give you improved fuel economy. We've also dropped 300 pounds out of the car, and that's going to do wonders for fuel economy as well.
Now, is this a hybrid in any way? You said that it's got start-stop capability. I always think hybrids when I think of that.
Yeah, I think as you see new vehicles across the industry launching, you'll see a greater use of start-stop to improve fuel economy. So it's not just for hybrids anymore. It's going across normal engines.
And so how well does that, or how much does that improve fuel efficiency if it's at 17 or 20, let's say? Does that boost it by another 3 or 4 miles to the gallon?
3 to 4 miles per gallon is huge.
Is it? Okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not in that industry. I just kind of threw that out.
No, I understand it, and it's a tough one because it all depends on your driving. If you're doing a lot of highway driving, the start-stop really doesn't help out. The cylinder deactivation does. But if you're doing a lot of in-town driving, you'll see probably I'm going to guess about a 5% improvement in fuel economy, which is really big. Couple that with the weight loss, and it should be even better than that.
We're talking with Brian Shipman, product manager for Buick LaCrosse and Regal. I'm Kyle Malin, editor of the MERS newsletter, filling in for Steve Gruber, and you're listening to the Steve Gruber Show. We're talking about the Los Angeles Car Show. It's really the first show of kind of the car show year. It kind of kicks things off and continues into the winter. One of the things that I've noticed here with cars, there's been a lot more talk about this automatic driving function where the car will notice that it's approaching another car, let's say, and will make a lane switch or will stop if it's rapidly approaching something. How far away is Buick from implementing those kind of technologies?
Well, on today's LaCrosse and on our new LaCrosse coming out in 2017, we do have adaptive cruise control, which does very similar things to what you're talking about. Doesn't do the lane change, but it will sense a car that's in front of you, and it'll realize if it's stopped in front of you or not, and it can bring the car to a complete stop without any driver interaction.
Wow.
If you want it to.
And
it's a great feature.
And have you seen this feature in action before? And what are the benefits? Have you guys have any statistics on the benefits for doing something like that?
It's fairly new, so we don't have a lot of history with it. I've used it on, I'm in the Detroit area going down Mound Road to the tech center. I've kept my feet off the gas and the brakes, and it's done everything for me, and it did a great job. That's
got to be kind of scary, isn't it? I mean, who wants to be the one to test?
You're right. The first time, you got to have confidence in it, but it did a great job. So, and it did bring me to a complete stop with plenty of room.
Well, I imagine, though, too, this is a backup. I mean, you don't want to rely on this to stop, I'm sure. This is to try and protect the driver who maybe, God forbid, you're doing distracted driving. I don't know who does that, but...
I don't know either, Kyle. But it is. It's a great safety feature, and like if you're cruising out on 696 or on the 94, it's going to sense in front of you if there's any traffic that's slowing down. It'll slow the car down. It'll keep the gap that you've set. So it's a great feature. It'll keep you out of trouble.
How much do you expect this Buick LaCrosse, this new Buick LaCrosse, to retail for?
Yeah, that we haven't determined yet. So the launch is going to be in the summer. Production starts up in the summer of next year, and we'll be able to announce pricing closer to that.
Where is it manufactured?
It'll be manufactured in Detroit Hamtramck,
okay,
which is great news for Michigan. So we're really looking forward to going back to Detroit Hamtramck. They used to produce the Lucerne a few years ago. So they're really excited to get Buick back into the plant, and we're excited about it as well.
What does Buick's line look like in 2017?
We'll have the SUV lineup with the Enclave and the Encore. We'll have the Buick LaCrosse, the Regal, Cascada. So it's a very well-balanced lineup on sedans and crossovers. So we have something for all age ranges and family sizes.
And the Regal, I noticed that you're also the product manager for that. Any kind of massive changes or any minor tweaks you want to talk about on what the Regal's going to look like in 2017?
2017, It's going to look very similar to today. We've got a great 2-liter turbo engine in it. If you haven't taken it for a drive, it's got a great sporty drive. My personal favorite is the Regal GS. Has a selectable suspension, 3 different modes that affects the suspension and the steering feel. Great acceleration, a lot of fun to drive, and very sporty, nice styling.
Very good. Brian Shipman, he's the product manager for Buick LaCrosse and Regal. Thanks for joining us live from the Los Angeles Car Show. You're listening
Thank
to this.
you, Kyle.
You're listening to Steve Gruber Show. I'm Kyle Malin, filling in today. We'll be back for the last segment after this.
The Steve Gruber Show. American values with Midwestern common sense.
This is the Steve Gruber Show. I'm Kyle Malin, editor of the MERS newsletter, filling in today, the 19th of November. Thanks for joining us today. Our last segment today is our old friend Seton Motley. He is the consultant and founder and president of Less Government. He's got a new article on the website today, lessgovernment.org. He's going to talk to us a little bit about that. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Always a pleasure, man. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Government choosing business for preference or punishment is always wrong. You're kind of launching into President Obama's fascination with putting more federal resources into green energy with this article, it looks like today.
Well, that was actually just a flashback example. In the 2009 stimulus, there was $80 billion for green energy, which is neither green nor energy. And 80% of that money went to Obama campaign donors. And that was just one of the early examples of Obama launching a new heightened level of cronyism in Washington, D.C. And what I singled out a Republican Senator, Tom Tillis from North Carolina, who's a good dude on many things. He called out the Trans-Pacific Partnership because, as with everything with Obama, this isn't a trade deal. This is a crony fest where he, rewards friends of his and punishes things he doesn't like, for instance, tobacco. Of course, Tom Tillis is a Republican senator from North Carolina, and the tobacco is carved out of the trade deal. They don't get to participate in the way many, many other goods and services do. And Tillis rightly said we shouldn't be picking winners and losers at the federal level. We should let everybody trade and let the best products and services win. Well, that's great, and I'm 100% with him on that. The problem is, last week, I think, he voted on the Judiciary Committee, he's on the Senate Judiciary Committee, he voted for the Patent Act. And the Patent Act is a terrible bill that will eviscerate patent protection in the United States. And one of the many things wrong with the bill is the pharmaceutical industry, which is, by the way, also like tobacco, very huge in North Carolina. The pharmaceutical industry wants a carve-out and has gotten a carve-out where the law doesn't apply to them in the way that it applies to everyone else. And Senator Tillis, who was rightly excoriating the carve-out against tobacco, voted for the carve-out for pharma. And I'm just trying to say to the guy, look, if the bill's so bad for pharma that they want a carve-out, the bill's that bad for everybody, and everyone should get an exemption from the bill, and it shouldn't pass. And that was just the point I was trying to make in that piece.
Well, let me play devil's advocate here with you. You could argue that tobacco, bad for individuals, so they shouldn't be able to play. And pharmaceuticals, good for people. That makes people feel good.
I'd like adult human beings here and across the planet to be able to make that decision for themselves, one way or the other. By the way, Barack Obama is still a smoker, apparently. So I don't, it's their lungs. If they want to do it, that's fine. I never smoked anything in my life except in one movie. I had to pretend to be a pothead, so I smoked Siberian ginseng cigarettes out of a bong. That was awful. I've never smoked anything. And, cigarettes pot, anything, none of it. And so, but I'm an adult. I want my decisions to be mine. I want their decisions to be theirs. You're all adults. You get to decide. And I don't want the government making moral decisions, or health decisions or anything. I want the government leaving us alone, except for the expressly enumerated powers in the federal government, in the Constitution for the federal government.
Well, let me kind of play off a situation that's developing here in Michigan that you may not be aware of, but I'm going to go ahead and just give you an update here. We have an old building in Kent County, one of our biggest counties in this state, that's in the shape of a pyramid, and that was an enormous building. That was. Is
it used to store grain?
Store grain. No, as a matter of fact, no. It's not like the pyramid in Memphis or the ones in Egypt. This used to house Steelcase, which is a furniture manufacturer. It's a 2 million square, well, it's not 2 million square foot, but this tech company called Switch wants to make a 2 million square foot data center that is anchored by this pyramid building. But in order for them to come, they are asking for several $1 million in future tax abatements and these kind of things. Now, this is the type of thing that this Republican legislature and this governor in particular have tried to shy away from and tried to kind of cleanse state government of. And yet we have this very enticing offer from this tech company, and now we're moving down the same road. What happens to politicians that kind of flip the switch, if you don't mind the pun, in their own head and say, golly, this is something we really got to do. This deal is better than what the previous people did.
Well, it's funny. I used to be a musician, and I lived in Austin, Texas, and it is there that I transitioned from trying to sell records to politics. And I was friends with one of the consultants for Governor Perry, who has their enterprise fund, and they do that all the time. They cut deals and all that, and this is in conservative as heck Texas. And I was angry, and I didn't like it. And his argument, and I don't agree with it. I understand it, but I don't agree with it. His argument was, well, the other 49 states are doing it. We can't unilaterally disarm. And I understand that to a degree. Believe me, I'm sympathetic to that. That makes a lot of sense, because if you won't do it, Louisiana will, or Arizona will, or Michigan will. And so I understand that argument. I'd love to get to the point where that doesn't happen anymore. Unfortunately, as I said, there's a lot of other states doing that, and so it gets to that point where and then again, it's the government picking businesses that they like. This makes, I don't like either one, but this makes a little more sense than what D.C. just did, which is cut all these deals to build a soccer stadium. Really? Americans don't like soccer because we can afford equipment. And they cut all these deals to build a soccer stadium in D.C. proper. So again, it's a bad deal to have the government picking winners and losers in businesses, even if you like the elected officials and they're picking good businesses.
Seton Motley, he's the consultant, founder, and president of Less Government. Thanks for joining us on the program today. Share your opinion on this stuff.
Always a pleasure, man. Thank you very much.
You're listening to the Steve Gruber Show. I'm Kyle Malin, editor of the MERS Newsletter. Been a pleasure filling in today. I'll be back again tomorrow. Talk to you about a lot more subjects. We're supposed to have the Attorney General, Bill Schuette, on the program. Looking forward to that. We'll be back.